This is a Triumph Dolomite, and I think it's the most beautiful saloon car ever to come out of Britain. That's really high praise, but just look at it. This particular one is a 1980 Dolomite 1850 HL, and it's had the same owner for the last 23 years, and that takes a serious amount of dedication and love to keep a car not only on the road, but in this good a condition for 23 years. The Dolomite was introduced in 1972, but the general shape had been around much longer, since 1965, when Triumph launched the 1300. That was meant to be a replacement for the Herald, but it didn't really pan out that way. But when did the British motor industry ever make sense? The Triumph 1300 was front-wheel drive, and due to the complexity of the car compared to the Herald, it never reached the heights of its predecessor. So the car was completely redesigned, became rear-wheel drive, and became the Triumph Toledo, launched in 1970. The Dolomite was launched as an upscale version of the Toledo and was meant to be available from 1970 as well, but British Leyland, trade unions, strikes, you know the story, so it finally came around in 1972. The Toledo ceased production in 1976 after the release of the Ryder Report and the nationalisation of British Leyland. The Dolomite then became available with smaller engines and less luxury as part of that rationalisation of the range. Engine choices went from 1300cc up to 2 litres in the genuinely quick Dolomite Sprint with its clever single overhead cam and 16 valves, rivalling the BMW 2002 Turbo. This car has the 1850cc engine, 4 cylinders, overhead cam and 8 valves. Despite it being a Triumph design, this slant 4 engine was first seen in the Saab 99 in a deal for Triumph to supply the Swedish company with engines. And you know something's good when Saab want to use it. The common but maligned engine is known as the slant 4 as it's canted over at 45 degrees. The reason it's somewhat maligned is time. You see, a lot of the people working on these cars in the 70s weren't fully clued up on how to mess with the engine, regularly leading to rusty cooling systems and overheating. In the early 70s, people weren't used to an engine with a cast iron block, aluminium pistons and an aluminium head, so didn't treat it accordingly. What doesn't surprise me though is that Saab ended up redesigning the water pump. That does say a little bit about this engine, doesn't it? I'm going to take a wild guess that you'd quite like to hear what that engine sounds like. Well then, let's have a listen. I'll probably do a separate video about the Dolomite Sprint one day, but for my own amusement, I'd like to talk a little bit about racing. The Dolly was a pretty successful racing car. It won the BTCC Manufacturers' Championship in 1974 and the Drivers' Championship in the year after. And in 1974, a Dolomite finished third at the Spa 24 Hours. They also took the Dolomite rallying, and as much as it had mixed success, this is a car with some serious racing pedigree. There are some differences with a really late Dolomite, like this Triumph badge here with the laurel wreath in it. Earlier Dolomites just had a badge that said Dolomite across the front, but as this is one of the very last Dolomites, it has this badge. Also, the last Dolomites had this front spoiler from the Dolomite Sprint. And this quad headlamp grille arrangement does resemble the Triumph Stag quite a bit and gives it a fantastic look. These wheels aren't original, obviously. These are Dolomite Sprint alloys. This 1850 HL would have originally come with Steelies, but these look just so much better. And of course these wing mirrors here, these aren't original either. These were put on by the previous owner. But this car's only had 2 owners, because of course the current owners owned it since 1996, for 23 years. It is remarkable. And because this isn't a Dolomite Sprint, you don't get a vinyl roof, but you do get these vinyl C-pillars with a D for Dolomite. on the sprints you would have got sprint written across there. And of course British Leyland didn't call this vinyl, they called it simulated leather, because who are you going to fool about vinyl? Come on. And people may have a little bit to say about this colour, russet brown, but I think it looks brilliant. But even if you don't like the colour, just look past it for a second. Imagine it in whatever colour you want, British Racing Green or something. This is one of the all-time best looking cars in my opinion. It's just fantastic. And this rear end with the rear end painted in black and these tail lamps look fantastic. And yes, that is a Dolomite Sprint exhaust. Not because it's been modified on purpose, but that exhaust was fitted over 20 years ago. And at the time you couldn't buy standard Dolomite exhausts. If you wanted a brand new one you had to get a Sprint exhaust, and so it had a Sprint exhaust fitted. And these fog lamps here are original. As this is a 1980 car, they were legally required to be fitted. You had to have one fog lamp. This one does have two, but that is the way British Leyland did it. And again, car from the 70s, loads of chrome trim all around, chrome exhaust, brown, even a chrome fuel filler there. This car is mega. Somehow I seem to have lost the audio for this bit of video, so you'll have to deal with another voiceover. But I'm showing you the boot. It's a pretty small car, so the boot isn't massive, and the boot isn't very deep either, but that's partially due to the rear-wheel drive layout of the car. Under the cover is a genuine 5th Sprint alloy, which was good of the owner to get 5 of them to be able to put on the car. And this little tag here in the corner is an original British Leyland build sticker. That's brilliant. I love this kind of stuff. And now I'm sat inside, rosy cheeks, etc. Let's have a look at the quality. Reassuring thunk. I like that, that's good. But these seats, which are... I don't know what colour these are actually. You tell me in the comments, I have no idea. But you get headrests, which are lovely and soft. And these seats are just so soft and comfy. I mean, look at the deflection there. These seats are mega comfy compared to anything you ever see in a modern car. And there's quite a lot of room in here and really good visibility. I mean, the C-pillars are quite large for a car from the 70s. They're tiny compared to a modern car's C-pillars. And the driving position is quite good. As much as the steering wheel sits quite far away from you, oh wait, it doesn't. If you do this, you get an adjustable steering column. How brilliant's that in a car from 1980? Of course, no electric windows, just manual ones here, and quarter lights, which are brilliant. Look at them. Why don't modern cars have quarter lights? That's wonderful. Unfortunately, there are no door pockets down here. You just get this carpet on the bottom of the doors with the vinyl further up. And the pedals are in a really weird position. You have your clutch and brake very close together, nowhere to put your clutch foot, and your throttle pedals all the way over here. It really is very weird, but British Leyland roundels on the pedals. How brilliant. Of course, as this is an old car, you have the indicator stalks the correct way round. So you have your wipers on the left, which make a reassuring noise, and you have indicators on the right, and your horn on the end. Comedy. And after that cut, because I locked the steering column, look at the steering wheel. 3-spoke, silver. That's fantastic. And Dolomite in big letters on the steering wheel. Thin rim. It's the perfect size and it looks fantastic. This is one of the great interiors. And these gauges here, very concise. You've got your tacho, speedometer, water temperature, volts, and your fuel gauge. And in the middle you have, I'm sure you can see that. Yes, there you go. You can see that a bit better now. You can see that warning cluster, which is just fantastic. I love that. Now, the gear shift is very long, and the selector spring either doesn't exist or it's worn out, I don't know. But you have 4-speed manual with an overdrive. Fantastic. But stupid, because why not just put a 5th speed on? And quartz clock, and here are your heater controls, which feel really satisfying to use actually. Very nice. And of course, no little diagrams, everything's on words here. And as with most British Leyland cars, you have a big shelf along the bottom, so you've got lots of room for all your odds and ends, stuffed dogs, fire extinguishers, etc. And Michelin men as well, if that's your thing. But the interior is just so nice. It's a lovely, lovely place to be. Lots of wood. I mean, I love wood dashboards, but this is fantastic. And of course, fluffy dice, if you watch my Wolseley video, yes. You get wood along the top of the doors here. There's cracks slightly here because British Leyland, but you know. And in the worst place possible, completely inconvenient, is an ashtray. And of course you get another one on that side. Sun visors are black on the inside, I suppose to stop reflections, but I'm not sure. But on the passenger side you do get a mirror, but none on the driver's side. Now, in the back of the Dolomite, there isn't an awful lot of room. I'm quite disappointed, to be honest. And of course you don't get headrests because that's the era this car's from. But you do get quite a bit of headroom. And again, you get a little mini ashtray here. Not as big as the front ones, just a little one. Because, I don't know, the children are smoking slightly less than the adults? No idea. Anyway, again, keep fit windows. The action isn't particularly very nice on them, but you know. And you do get grab handles on all corners, but it's just a really nice place to be. The seat's very reclined and very comfortable as well, and you get a centre armrest. It's just a really, really nice place to be here. And as you sit so reclined in the back, and there isn't actually very much room, although you do have these map pockets there, little add-on, getting out is a little more undignified than I'd expect in a car like this. But then again, swings and roundabouts. I can't really comment on ride comfort. As I say, the owner's owned it since he was a teenager, and it's been lowered and polybushed, so it bangs about a fair bit. Maybe don't lower and polybush your car when you're a teenager. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. And indeed it is, because this car really, really bangs about when it just shouldn't do that. I'm led to believe that Dolomites are quite nice, comfortable cars, but also have exceptionally good handling. This car isn't the best example of any kind of ride comfort due to those modifications, so take it with a pinch of salt. This kind of stuff really does it for me. Obviously 1980, Williams and Alan Jones won the Formula 1 World Championship, and so that's proudly displayed here. Here's another thing I love, old brochures. And this isn't from the era of this car, this is a little bit older than this car, this brochure, but a triumph of British engineering. Ha! Ha! Oh god. But there's Dolomite 1300 with its rectangular headlamps. So that's the bottom of the range Dolomite. What would have been a Toledo before 1976. See, very basic. And a Dolomite 1500. A little bit nicer inside, still no rear armrest. 1500 HL, wow. And then the 1850 HL, which is this car, which has a really nice interior. And the 1850 still. And then the full fat Dolomite Sprint with racing pedigree. And it's fantastic 16 valve engine. And here are all your specs. If you want to see them, pause now. The Dolomite really is an excellent car, and it just shows what British Leyland could do if they came together properly and produced a really, really good car. This is probably the pinnacle of British Leyland. It's beautiful, it's fast, it's comfortable, and it's a riot to drive. This is when Triumph really were mixing it with the big boys. So I'll say thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in a future video.